Okay, so speaking to Nicholas Rooney, now he's the filmmaker behind feature documentary The Pillars of Heaven, which has been nominated for 2 awards at the Nice International Filmmaker Festival this year, our festival. So thanks so much for your time, Nicholas. Congratulations with the awards, the award nomination, sorry. So yeah, I've seen, I haven't seen the whole film, I've seen a lot of the film, very powerful film. Could you just explain to us the first question? Now, you had, I think, quite a successful career as a diplomat. What happened to not only make you decide to make a film, but actually to make this as your very first film? Because it's a huge step for a first-time filmmaker.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me and agreeing to interview me. It's a real pleasure to be nominated for the film festival.
Thank you.
And as I said, I'm very happy to talk to you. Sort of speaking directly in response to your question, I mean, as I have said throughout the film, and I think there's various press items as well, I was working briefly as a diplomat for the EU at the Organisation for Security and Cooperation in Europe, and I was working specifically on the Ukraine crisis. And both before it happened, during its initiation, and at the height of it, and it just seemed to me that, frankly, diplomacy, particularly at the highest levels, was not really helping this crisis. It was actually, in my view, making it worse. It was just entrenched positions, the deaf speaking to the deaf, and it became polarised along old Cold War lines again. And I became really disillusioned by this, because I always believed that diplomacy is supposed to prevent wars, soothe tensions, and I didn't feel we were doing that. I mean, maybe I should have taken the long view and looked at the long view of how diplomacy works. But obviously I'm not that old, and I wanted to see what I could do now. And a lot of people didn't really understand the conflict, and it wasn't really treated in a very unbiased fashion. So I thought, well, what could I do? And so I decided to make a film about the conflict. I mean, I've looked at quite a few films that have been made about the conflict, and they either sort of fall down the, pro-Western line and sort of quite biased, or they go down the Russian line, which is again quite biased. And I tried to make sort of an epic, big film which dealt with the complexity of the crisis, looked at it from a geopolitical, a religious, historical, humanitarian angle. And also, it was sort of a journey. It was a journey for me, and I hope the viewers find it as a journey as well.
And was that because you're brought in as diplomatically, but is that because of what you actually saw on the ground, if that's the right way to describe it, or maybe to put it another way, what you came across? I guess you were completely surprised by. You just weren't expecting what you actually saw and came across.
Well, it was, I dealt with it in the comfy halls of diplomacy in Vienna. And when I actually went to the ground to see what was happening for the filming, I was very shocked by what was actually happening on the ground. And there was this huge disparity between what you read in the media, what you're told, in press briefings and diplomatic meetings. As I said, it was very much a journey for me, and I did certainly change my views and my perception of what was going on during the filming. Yeah. It's a big thing to go from feeling really disillusioned by this to actually making a film. I mean, what point did someone suggest it, or is it an idea you came up with? How did that actually? I mean, I've always been interested in films. I've always loved films. And I know the impact and power they can have. And one of the films which really did inspire me was Sergei Loznitsa's Maidan, which was just dealing with the Maidan revolution, coup, whatever you want to call it. And sort of, it was really, really powerful documentary, and I know the power that documentaries can have, and I don't know of a better way to raise awareness of the conflict. And also, as I said, I was looking to my goal was to find what could I do which could help maybe bring about peace and improve mutual relations between the West and Russia, and again, raise awareness of this issue. And again, I don't know a better way than making a film, really.
And I can only imagine how difficult this was to put together, purely because of not just not necessarily because of the subject matter. That might have been a problem, but actually filming it. Was there any? How difficult was that to resolve all of that? How complicated did that become?
Well, of course, there were certain technical issues. This was my very first film. It was all done in Ukraine by Ukrainian cameramen, sound people. I had a fixer. I mean, I do speak Russian, so that helped as well. And obviously for the western parts of Ukraine, they only speak Ukrainian. And so I had an Ukrainian the fixer who helped me with the translating as well. But yeah, and we were out there for a couple of weeks shooting. And I went out beforehand to sort of meet people and find a crew. But no, it was not an easy task, and it was sort of early morning wake-ups and long train journeys and war zones, etc. So it was a real experience, yeah.
And even before you sort of shot the first frame, obviously you were determined to make this film, and you'd been, if you don't mind me saying, affected by what you'd come across because of your role. But have you, during the, it was kind of a bit of a stupid question on my part, so I'm going to apologise beforehand, but did you become even more affected as the shoot went on?
Well, yes, particularly as I went towards the war zone. And I mean, I'd structured the film like my journey was structured. Essentially, I started off for the Christmas celebrations in the mountains, in the Carpathian Mountains, and then I slowly went towards the war zone. And so, as you see in the film, it was my emotional arc of the film as well, becoming sort of quite shocked and amazed at what I was seeing in the war zone. So yes, I was certainly affected by that. Yeah.
And is there one particular part of or scene in the film that was more difficult than any other? I'm sorry to dwell upon this, but I know it's a very serious subject matter, of course.
What one part of the film which was more...
that affected you more than... I mean, I suppose I could ask it another way. What was the most difficult part of the shoot in terms of the subject matter you were dealing with?
Well, I mean... There were many sort of moving moments. There were some beautiful moments during the various services and during some of the interviews, some of the speakers saying some quite touching things. And then there were some fun moments, I think, playing with the family, living in the Western Carpathian Mountains. That was some nice moments. But then it was very tough in the war zone and sort of getting access to various areas. That was tough as well. So it was a huge variety of different experiences. I couldn't really pick one, to be honest.
No, I know. It's always a difficult thing to ask filmmakers. I think more so with documentary filmmakers, because when you're dealing with fictional pieces, films, short films, long films, when you ask them that question, often it's about the whole shooting process. The camera might have broken or something. But I think it's much more difficult for films where you this is real life. Frankly, you're seeing something on the ground. And so the vision that you had before you started making this film, the ideas that you wanted to have in the film, the stuff you wanted to show on camera, did it kind of pan out the way, or should I say, is the end result how you hoped it would be, or is it more or less so?
Well, I mean, I had certain ideas and visions at the beginning, but obviously with a documentary, I think it was, I'm not sure if it was Hitchcock who said this, but, in a normal film, the director is God, but in a documentary, God is the director. You can't really know what's going to happen, and I wanted to do it in a very observational style. I mean, I wasn't even planning to have narration at the beginning, but I thought narration at the end of the day worked better, because I just wanted to sort of watch and see events unfold before me. But I think then I needed the context and the sort of international relations, geopolitical explanations as well, historical explanations. And of course, things just happened which I didn't know was going to happen, of course. And in terms of sort of vision and style of the film, I was looking very much at Eastern European directors, Tarkovsky, Kieslowski, and Sergei Lovnitsa. And it was combining the themes of war and peace, love and hate, peace, forgiveness, reconciliation, and sort of exploring these ideas, where they lead to in the diplomatic, religious, historical sense, and also combining these with the beautiful churches, nature, countryside of Ukraine, the people themselves, trying to reveal the character of the people and sort of not make it a very academic film, but try and breathe life into the characters who are really suffering from this conflict.
I suppose the question is, do you, looking back, I mean, I know this is a real passion project, of course. Are you ultimately glad that you made the absolute right decision, and you're, because you're leaving a pretty successful career, I guess. So, it's always different when you're looking back at things. I know that, but overall, are you pretty pleased with the decision you made? Because that must have been a very difficult decision to make, and also making the film. Are you sort of pretty pleased with how it all turned out?
Well, I mean, I was pleased with what I got in the end. Yes, absolutely, and it was certainly a difficult decision. But there's always different ways to get diplomatic messages out there, and it's not necessarily the end of a diplomatic career.
No.
And this is something I felt very strongly about. And as I said, the war is still continuing. It's 3 years on. Thousands have died, over 1 million refugees. And if I was sort of sitting still in a diplomatic position, I would have less sort of freedom to speak out about these issues.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course, I understand, because you have to, I guess, without putting words into your mouth, toe the diplomatic line. There might be a better way to put that, but I know you have to be very careful about what you say. How did you assemble the crew that you needed to, or the people to help you make this film? How did that all come about? And also, how long did it, from the process of thinking I'm going to make a film to finishing the final cut that you wanted? What was the process there?
Well, it was about say a year and a half. I mean, it was sort of me learning the technical side of actually how to make a film.
Yeah,
that was sort of my educating myself, and then at one of the film schools, I met someone who recommended a very good fixer he'd used in Ukraine. And so I went out to Ukraine, I met the fixer. She recommended, a cameraman and a sound guy, and it was a few options, and I looked at their work, and I just essentially chose the team which fitted very much with my vision of what I wanted. As I said, it was a very low budget film, so I was limited in the budget, and I myself did the narration, direction, producing, writing, so I did a lot myself as well. But I had a great team; they were very good in Ukraine, and obviously the editing was done in Ukraine as well.
Yeah.
So it was all done. As I said, I did it all with local people, which in one way was good, because they had local knowledge and they really knew the country well, and they were able to help me and guide me.
Yeah.
But then it was also, I had to be careful because, as the film says, the country is very, very split. And so in some areas, they couldn't go. When I went into the war zone, I had to take on a different cameraman and fixer, because, they were from the west part of Ukraine, and it was a danger for them, essentially, to go into the war zone. So there were also these logistical problems as well. And
looking back, I know you wore all these hats, which I know from talking to lots of filmmakers is a very complicated thing. Would you change, I suppose a double-barrel question, would you change the way you shot the film in terms of making, I don't know, a leaner process? And what did you learn about filmmaking, or what sticks in your mind about filmmaking, again, when you look back at the process?
I did have a lot of roles, but I think this was a very good education, because, I haven't formally been to film school. I've done a few short courses. But I still believe that the very best way to learn is learn by doing. And you make mistakes, of course you do, and it's good to get an experienced crew. That was key. The people I were working with, as I said, were excellent. They were very experienced. And that's the thing, you do make mistakes. I would do many things differently next time. But, this is my first film. I suppose everyone has to go through that.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. And It's I know obviously it's quite long. It's a 3 hour film. I'm guessing. Have you got a another version of this? Because I suspect you're looking at ways of getting this out there. But have you? Is that something that you're looking at the moment, or perhaps you've done?
I haven't done it yet. No, I would be willing, and I'm looking at sort of cutting the film into 2 or 3 parts.
All right.
So that would sort of deal with the length of it. But as I said, this was for me very much an odyssey and epic. So I thought the length was sort of necessary to some extent, and it did actually start off at about almost 5 hours.
Right.
So I cut quite a lot of it out. But it was also getting all the complexity and the issues in there. It was very difficult to do in less, in my view, and if I were to cut it, I'm not sure it would be the same quality of film. But as I said, I have already done various versions of 2 parts and 3 parts of the film.
Now, I asked you what was the most difficult part, but what was, and you touched upon this already, but again, what was the truly the best part about making this film?
Well, I mean, it's always great to make a film. The finished product, it was a torturous process. As I said, it was a very difficult shoot, a difficult edit, and difficult subject matters all to get in there. But it was a great feeling once the film was finally cut. It was all ready, and to know that I'd actually made a film, that was a very, very nice moment.
And now you've made a film. I love asking. I ask this question to virtually anyone that's made a film, but I always think you always get interesting answers. Now you've done your first film. Would you agree that filmmaking is addictive?
It is. It certainly is. I completely agree with that. Yes.
And in what way did it? Not the subject matter so much, but in what way did the actual filmmaking process? What was it like when you finished the film? I mean, your final cut. This got your final cut. You watched it for the first time, not in an editing suite, but with other people around you. What's going through your heart and head?
Are they going to get the bits I wanted to get across? I mean, you have a vision when you start off with a film, and it's seeing that vision come to life and on the screen. It is a magical moment. And of course, when you're sitting in an audience with other people watching it, they laugh at certain bits you don't want them to laugh at, or they sort of walk out, or there's all sorts of different reactions which you just have no idea what's going to happen, essentially. So there is that nervousness and excitement, certainly when you screen it.
And what kind of reaction have you had? What's been the audience reaction in general?
Well, this will be the world premiere of the film at the Nice Festival. So that will be the first big public screening. In terms of sort of smaller family and friends, etc., viewings I've had. Obviously, the length has come up. People have mentioned the length. But positively, people found it very interesting, sort of the cinematography and the characters and the music. People have liked it.
And what's next?
Well, I would still do documentaries, but I'm working on a script at the moment, adaptation of a Tolstoy novel, which again is a fairly serious matter. It deals with death essentially, and so I'm writing a script of that, and I'm looking at various other ideas as well. So I will certainly continue filmmaking. I'd like to certainly continue filmmaking, should I say?
No, really, really well done. And Nicholas, that's it, actually. Believe it or not.